Welcome to the Travelling Healer podcast, a podcast where we interview healers, practitioners, and thought leaders in the field of healing, where we push your boundaries and beliefs in what is truly possible in healing.
Hey guys, welcome to the Travelling Healer podcast. We've got Jonno Gibbins on the show today. I met Jonno at the Waipu Natural Health Clinic. He brought in a load of shoes, and they caught my eye because they looked a lot different to the average shoe you get. And then one of my work colleagues, Jan, started wearing them, and she was just raving about how her life's changed from them. And then so I was like, wow, okay, that looked pretty cool. Then about a week later, I actually bumped into a chiropractor in Dargaville. And he said, man, you got to check out these shoes, they're amazing. And they happen to be the same brand. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I was like, okay. And then Jan texted me, a couple of days later, she's like, you gotta meet Jonno. You gotta meet. Yeah. So I met. Oh, my phone's ringing. I just turn that off. Bad timing.
Yeah.
But we can go with that.
It's alright, it's part of life.
Exactly. Airplane mode is on.
I'll try and get rid of these mobile phones if we can.
Yeah. So I then met up with you and decided I was going to give them a go. So these are the first shoes I bought from Jonno. If you can see them, they're what's the material? Is it suede or?
That is suede. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not vegan. But
not vegan. Okay. So they're a barefoot style running shoe. And then I asked, Jonno, what else do you do? And he said, I'm a barefoot running coach, and I've trained Olympic athletes and whatnot. So I thought, okay, this guy's pretty interesting. And then after a good discussion, I was like, well, I've got to hear more. So here I am at Jonno's house, and
well, I don't really have a house.
Yeah,
it's a field.
What would you a field?
A couple of sheds and quite a lot of cars at the moment.
Yeah. So in the background there you can see, would you call them cabins or?
Yeah, cabins or somewhere to wash your feet and make a meal.
Yeah. And he just gave me the tour. I arrived and he gave me the smoothie here. And what's in the smoothie?
What's in the smoothie? So some fresh filtered rainwater, ginger, turmeric, bananas, oranges, apples. We've got dandelion leaves, plantain leaves, all kinds of random kale, all kinds of stuff. Some raisins. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Whatever tastes good, whatever's growing in the field.
That's so cool.
Yeah, bit of mint.
Yeah, and I can taste that. So really I just want to pick your brain on this sort of lifestyle you're living, also about barefoot running, and just living a simple life.
Sure.
Yeah. So first of all, can you tell us about your background firstly with running and or sports?
Well, I've always been into sport. So from a child, the first thing I remember is playing all the normal kind of team sports. Cricket, football, rugby. So that's how I grew up. Football, as in soccer, I grew up in England. So football was the main thing. That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a pro.
Yeah.
So pretty much all my childhood life, that's what I focused on. But at school, I did every sport there was in all the teams. But they were all mainstream sports. Although my dad was a surfer. So this is back in the 60s, 70s, and one of the there weren't many surfers around in England at that time. So I would go to the beach, but I don't remember actually being taken surfing. But I was kind of immersed in that kind of, or I was aware of surfing, and there were magazines around, and we were often at the beach. So, so alongside the mainstream sports, there was that going on.
Yep.
When I was about 13, I got into windsurfing.
Oh wow!
Through my dad as well. So that was pretty good. But as I said, I was just still playing football. And ended up I had some professional trials, but didn't make it. Did all my exams. I don't know whether I necessarily enjoyed school. It was just for the sport mainly. left school. I wanted to do sports science actually.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I did some of that.
Yeah, but I didn't get the grades to get in, so they didn't want me, even though they didn't care about my actual sporting ability.
Yeah.
Whether I could.
But I knew a lot already.
What my physics was like, you know.
Yeah.
So I went to art college after school.
Oh wow.
I was pretty good at engineering, drawing, and all the kind of graphic side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I hated it. There was too many hippies, and it was just I didn't like all the. We had to do fashion and
Oh really?
fine art, and I wasn't really into that. So I quit. I did a. Well, actually, the reason I quit was the college I was at. It wasn't just an art college; it was all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
I was in the football team for the college.
Yep.
Which was a Wednesday afternoon thing.
Okay.
But the course was my art foundation course was all week, and they wouldn't. They said, look, it's either you're going to do something else, or you can't play football and do this art course. They wouldn't let me have Wednesday afternoon off, so I quit.
Wow.
So I went and did a sports foundation course for 6 months. And
Yep.
Anyway, so long. Well, this is going to be quite a long story, but after that, so I was doing a bit of lifeguarding, swimming in a swimming pool. After I left college, the whole football thing had gone. I knew I wasn't going to make it. So what do I do now? I had no idea what to do. I was down the pub one night, as you do, on a rainy day with my mate, and for some reason, I don't know where it came from, but we decided that we were going to go to Australia for a year.
Oh yeah.
So this was 1986.
Wow.
And I didn't know anyone that had been to Australia to do their kind of overseas experience type thing. Mm-hmm. So we just decided we're going to go in 6 months, we'll save our money, and we're going to go. Mm-hmm. I was working as a lifeguard, he was a builder or something. 6 months went by, I had the money, but he didn't have any. So he'd been down the pub too much. I gave him another month, he still didn't have any, so I just left. I went off to Australia. I don't know, I was not 19, 20, can't remember. Pretty young.
Yeah.
Flew to Australia, actually via the States. By that time I'd done a little bit of surfing and a fair bit of windsurfing. I wouldn't call myself a surfer as such. I certainly hadn't done any snowboarding or heard of snowboarding or actually been to a ski resort or skied or anything like that.
Oh wow.
But on arriving in Australia, I went on a working holiday visa. Mm-hmm. So arriving there, I just looked for jobs and looked in the local newspaper. And I got there, by the way, with a one-way ticket and $100 in my pocket. Right,
To Aussie?
Yeah. That's
wow.
With a year visa.
Oh my God.
Right, I had a friend of friends to stay with. I called them when I got there and they said, yeah, sure, come and stay. Looked in the newspaper and there was a job going as a ski technician.
Oh,
and I had no idea. I assumed it had something to do with water skiing. We're in Australia and there's no ski resorts in Australia, are there? Yeah. Surely. Anyway, it turned out it was a job in a Bill Duff ski hire up in Mount Buller. I got the job. And it started a few months later. So in the meantime, I'd travelled around Australia. And in that time, I met this guy, another guy from England, who was also going to be working in a ski resort, another one. And he told me about this snowboarding thing. I was like, never heard of it. And long story short, we went and met this guy who was selling snowboards. We bought some snowboards and boots and all the gear. And that's how I got into snowboarding. Did a season up in Australia, got totally hooked on it, and then decided, well, I love Australia, but now I need snow, and I need to go and find some proper snow. So after about 18 months in Australia, I left and went up to Canada for a few weeks, and then back to England, and ended up doing lots and lots of ski seasons. I got into racing snowboards, became British snowboard champion, slalom champion.
That's incredible. After how long?
Oh, that was in 1990. I was British snowboard champion. So and I only started in '87, so it wasn't very long.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, there weren't many people doing it. I didn't have much competition. I did, but there weren't many people.
Oh yeah, but it's still pretty awesome.
So then it just the next several years were just about going to ski resorts and being I suppose you'd call it a ski bum, doing seasons, which I never had a penny. I just had enough money each time to get to the resort, and then when you get there, you got to find a job and but all the jobs are basically give you accommodation and ski pass and food, and you don't really need anything else. So and you spend all day snowboarding. So got pretty good at that and enjoyed it, and got into instructing snowboarding and guiding. Worked for various companies doing that in Europe. And then I met a girl, as you do, and she was from California, and I went back with her to California for the summer. It's sometime in the 90s, I can't tell you which year. There was a lot going on, and decided it was awesome and I wanted to stay. Oh, she dumped me after 2 weeks, but
but you still wanted to stay.
So, but I wanted to stay. I ended up in Lake Tahoe, which is a beautiful part of America.
Is it? Yeah.
Amazing in the winter for snowboarding and skiing. And then in the summer, it's a beautiful lake and just all the water sports apart from surfing. And then I set up a company there to basically bring people over from England and take them snowboarding for like 10 days at a time. So we had a chalet, so I employed a chef, and we had all the gear for them. Took them snowboarding every day, taught them, guided them, found the best powder for them. Did that for a few years. At that time, well, actually before that, I'm sorry, I'd written a book on how to snowboard. So it was like the first British instructional book on snowboarding.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
That's so
I didn't earn any money doing any of this, by the way. It was all just because I loved doing it. And, it was just fun.
Did it really get out there, that book?
Well, the first print run was 200,000 copies.
What?
Yeah, and then I've seen it in various languages since then. Yeah. So
you went on their credit, like you didn't get the
no, they just paid me a fee.
Oh.
But it was I did ask them for royalties.
Their royalties.
They said no, you do it like our way, or we'll go and find someone else. I thought it's better if I do it. I'll get something out of it. I did. I got a wife out of it actually, and a son. So
there you go.
She was So
have you written any other books?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Planning one.
I like that.
So one of my clients ended up being my wife. She came over to America on a snowboard trip, and 2 weeks later we got married, which is pretty cool. She ended up staying in the States. We stayed there for a couple of years. And then started what I like to call the dark side, actually, of my life. Up to then it wasn't all fun, obviously. You can't have fun every day, but it was pretty much a lot of fun. But I didn't own a thing. I pretty much had a bag. I lived out of a bag, and I did seasons, and had a good time, and was doing well at my sport. Then I got a little bit swayed into going and living more of a normal life.
Yeah.
So we ended up back in Europe.
Yeah.
My wife was an accountant, and she'd come from a good job or a company that she had with her dad. So she had a good income over there. So we ended up actually living in France, northern France, because it was cheap. And then she'd take the tunnel over to England every week. So she'd go away for 4 days, come back for 3 days.
Yeah.
And my life became about renovating houses in France. So we'd buy an old farmhouse. It was so cheap over there, it was ridiculous at the time.
Yeah.
But I gave up all the sport, snowboarding, the fitness side of it. I wouldn't say I was healthy before any of that. I was eating rubbish, anything and everything. But the fitness side of it was there. And we were hiking up mountains every day for snowboarding, and there was mountain biking in the summer, and rock climbing and stuff. But then went from that to living a sedentary builder's type of life.
Yeah.
My wife was an accountant, and we had we were married for 10 years, and basically got very unfit, very unhealthy, and overweight, and pretty miserable.
Okay.
Both of us, I'd say. Freddie, my son, was born in 2006. 6 months later, due to lifestyle, which I now know, I didn't know any of this at the time, but I now believe that for lifestyle reasons, my wife got cancer and died 6 months after that. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So Freddie was 16 months old, and there I was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there I was in France on my own with this baby, and
wow.
It was a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of the dark side, which everyone's got to have their dark sides in order to learn what the bright sides are all about. But literally the next day, I just started. I knew what to do, how to be fit. Didn't really know much about the health side of it, but I knew about the fitness side of it. So I got straight back on my bike. I was running, not properly, by the way, but I got back into running, got into weights, and I cleaned my diet up, but not as well as I should have done at the time.
Yeah.
But that was the start of the road to where I am now. So
Wow.
that was 2007. It was a bit. We were, as I said, living in France in the middle of nowhere, and it was just not going to work. So I moved to England because I hadn't really lived in England for quite a while.
Yep.
Moved to Cornwall, bought a house on the beach, and basically went surfing for a year. Got back into surfing, and I started studying to be a personal trainer.
Okay.
And learning all about fitness and health and diet. Diet was the big thing, or diet's not a very good word, but nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition.
Basically what we eat. I'll carry on. There's more if you want more.
Well, I mean, leading into now, you're basically a barefoot coach.
Yeah.
And you did, what was the physical conditioning? Is it course?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, how I got into the barefoot side of it.
Yep.
Once I'd become a personal trainer.
Yep.
One of my clients, who just announced one session that he was going to do this local triathlon, and I'd heard the word triathlon, but to me it conjured up these incredible athletes, and I thought he was completely nuts, because he wasn't particularly fit, I thought about it for a couple of weeks. I thought, well, if you're going to do it, then I kind of really need to do it, So I did this triathlon and just got hooked, basically, long and short of it. Just kind of knocked surfing on the head for a bit, and I just trained super hard, got totally into it. But when I started training for the running, I found I was getting real bad calf injuries.
Oh, okay.
They would just cramp up. They weren't tearing. Some days I might be able to run half an hour, no problem. Another day I could run 100 yards and it would just lock up and I just couldn't move. I went to see all kinds of different people, massage therapists, osteopaths. I don't think I saw a chiropractor, but all kinds, anyone I could think of went to see. And I had people telling me my big toes were too big, my left glute wasn't firing, my right calf wasn't firing, anything they could think of, right? It was just rubbish. I had massages, no idea. And then actually the same client that started the triathlon thing arrived one session and handed me a book called Born to Run. Have you ever read it?
No.
Got to read.
To be honest, you're my biggest influence in beer running it so far in my life. Honestly, these shoes. So.
Well, this book was an eye opener. It's a story and it's mostly fact, but there's a little bit of story in it as well. But it makes you actually question everything in life, but particularly running. Mm-hmm. So it's about this guy that was kind of gone down the same road as me. He got injured running and was looking for the truth. How are we supposed to run as human beings? Anyway, it turns out that there's a technique to running. I didn't know anything about that.
Okay.
So I started researching the technique.
Yep.
Realised that I shouldn't be running as I was, and I've been teaching people to run on their heels through personal training. So my personal training course was like, right, you land on the heel, you roll through to the toe, and that's how you run. So that's actually what I've been teaching as well. It was really embarrassing. So as soon as I realised there was a technique, it was also realised that you shouldn't be wearing these massive cushioned shoes with all this support. So the shoe and the technique goes hand in hand. Or
absolutely.
Foot in shoe, or whatever it is. So I started researching footwear. I found these 5-finger things, Merrill 5 fingers.
I've seen them, which they look funny.
Were a bit of a nightmare, I couldn't get my toes into them anyway. It's certainly no good in a triathlon for a transition, for half an hour trying to get the damn things on. Anyway, long and short of that is that eventually I discovered VIVOBAREFOOT, which is a British company who makes barefoot shoes out of London. Yep. And they also at the time were doing courses on how to run. So you could go out there for a day and learn how to run. You could also go out there for a week and study your arse off and become a barefoot running coach.
Great.
So I decided I didn't have much money left at the time, but I figured there must be a lot of other people out there who were in the same boat as me, and I could actually benefit them by teaching them.
Absolutely.
So I went and did this course, and that was the life-changing moment. Learned how to run myself properly.
Yep.
And then learned how to teach other people, and took that back to Cornwall where I was living. Started coaching all the triathletes that I'd been training and racing with. Then they all wanted the shoes. There was nowhere to get the shoes, so I kind of linked in with VIVOBAREFOOT and started selling shoes to them as well.
Wow. How long have you been involved with VIVOBAREFOOT?
So that would have been, I started it all in 2008, I think. So,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's really cool.
yeah.
Longer than I thought. Yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't actually know these shoes have been out for that long.
Well, they're a really small company,
Yeah.
and they don't have the marketing dollars like a Nike or whatever to push it. But once you've worn them, as you know, you can't go
Yeah.
back. There's no going back.
And absolutely, like the quality is extremely high. I mean, you were showing me your hiking boots before.
Yeah.
How long have you had those for?
Well, they were one of the first pair of boots I got. Yeah, so 8-9 years or something.
Yeah.
They're falling apart now, but
Yeah, but that's
doing well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
So that was that.
Yep.
And so we ended up living in England for about 5 years, all in all. And I said I was heavily into triathlon. I thought that was my future. I thought.
Okay.
And then one Christmas, I don't know if you spent a Christmas or any time in England, but
Not yet. Maybe my next
yeah.
journey.
but I think in the 5 years I've been there, we'd had about 2 weeks of sun in the
Oh,
whole
wow.
5 years, and it
Yep.
was kind of getting
In
to
5
me.
years.
It was kind of getting to me, to be honest. So my brother had just come back from New Zealand, and we were kind of all huddled around the radiator one Christmas, and so the whole nutrition thing had been progressing to this point, and I was gradually fine-tuning what I was eating.
Yep.
Especially with triathlon in mind, you got to be really think about what you're eating for fuel. By
Yep.
then I'd never got up to the Ironman, but I was doing half Ironman, so you've got to think about your fuel. And I'd read a book which I thought was pretty amazing called 80-10-10, which was about a raw food diet, basically.
Yep.
With lots of fruit. And that's the road that's how I didn't do it all this in one leap. I went from eating everything to vegetarian, realising I still wasn't really eating any fruit or veg. Still could be really unhealthy. Into vegan, still maybe not eating enough fruit or veg. Into more raw, all fruit and veg. So
Yeah.
it was kind of stepping stones.
And just for the viewers and listeners, there's a banana patch over there. You've got, you called them weeds before, didn't you? Yeah.
Well, people call them weeds, but there are lots of things growing that are actually
in our smoothie.
They're food.
And they've got their own garden up there, and it's awesome. So
Well, the future will be this will all be food. Hopefully.
yeah.
And you won't have to weed it or
So it's
look
awesome.
after
He's
it,
actually
hopefully.
living off the land.
Yeah. That was the aim. So that's what the conversation was about. Sitting around this radiator at Christmas in England. It's like if we want to live like this, there's got to be somewhere better. If we want to surf in warm water. We want to be able to grow our own food so that it's organic and we can live healthily. Bearing in mind that I'd decided myself that my wife had died through a disease that is perfectly or completely preventable if you've got the right lifestyle. If you're active, you're fit, you're healthy from what you eat, you're not surrounded by Wi-Fi and stress from work and etc. etc. So all these things, and that's where the conditioning comes in. It's a global picture of all kinds of angles, which we really weren't going to get in England, I didn't feel. So we basically took a map of the world and so where on earth could we go that would tick all these boxes. And I said my brother had just come back from New Zealand, and this is pretty much the best place on the planet to live this kind of lifestyle. And also being a single parent with an active son who was into every sport, where better to grow up. So
Awesome.
I literally packed everything up, sold the house. I had no idea how I was going to get here or get into the country because you can't just walk in. And not having ever having had a career as such, I wasn't a doctor or a teacher or anything. All I had was my knowledge from of all this kind of lifestyle, exercise, etc. So I discovered down in Otago that they were doing a postgraduate physical conditioning course.
Yep.
Which I applied for,
Mm-hmm.
and I got onto it given basically because of all my experience as
Yep.
a snowboarder, as a personal trainer, as a triathlete, etc.
Yeah.
And I was a mature student, so I got onto that rather than through having been a graduate, if
Yep.
you like. So that was my way into New Zealand. So that was
Cool.
my 1
So
year.
you actually got accepted before you even flew
Yeah,
over?
I got accepted.
Mm.
Yeah. So got over here, and then we just had to find somewhere to live because I didn't have to live in Otago. I basically had to find a centre where I could coach my sport, which was running.
Yep.
And work with a mentor, and then just go down to Otago a few times a year.
Yep.
So we toured around New Zealand looking for this perfect spot.
Yep.
I didn't really find it, to be honest. I couldn't find anyone that would be a mentor for me. From my angle, I was teaching barefoot running
Yeah.
and running technique. By the way, I think by then I'd possibly stopped calling it barefoot running, because even though, okay, there's a whole angle of barefoot running where people simply don't wear shoes, and
Yep.
it is barefoot running.
Yep.
Well, most people don't want to do that. General public, they're
Yeah.
not interested in that. It hurts. They don't want to. It's cold. Can hurt. Can be cold. But running technique is completely. It is involved obviously with barefoot running, but it's something that more people can relate to. So every athlete from whatever sport, if it involves running, there's a technique to it, and they can improve their sport, their performance by having a proper technique. Anyway, so that was my angle coming over here.
Yep.
Anyway, I've been pretty much most places in New Zealand, and the last place that everyone had said, you've got to go to Nelson. I'm like, well, I don't really want to go to Nelson because there aren't any waves, and we wanted to surf, we wanted a spot where there were waves. Anyway, that was the last resort, as it were. So on my way to Nelson, I googled running coach Nelson, and up came the National Academy of Distance Running. I'm like, wow, okay, that sounds pretty good. So I emailed them, and I got a response immediately. Yep, come see us tomorrow. There's actually one guy, Greg Lawton-Slager, he's American, and he was a real top runner in his time in America.
Okay.
Went to see him the next day, and we were totally on the same page.
Great.
Even though he didn't coach technique, he knew that everyone should be running in a flat shoe. Things like stretching, he wasn't, he didn't do static stretching. He was into diet, the nutrition. He was into a lot of he understood exactly what I was saying. So I started the next day, and I coached there for 3 years.
Yep.
And at the time, obviously, I was doing this course. After I finished my course, I then discovered my way in was going to be through a certain visa that allows me to coach, come in as a coach. But I had to be sponsored by the academy for that, which they sponsored me. And now I'm waiting to hear if I'm going to get residency. So based on the same basis. So.
Yep.
But things have evolved through doing that course, the physical conditioning course, and coaching there.
Yep.
I then started working with better athletes, Olympic athletes, and also widening the whole spectrum of what exactly conditioning is. So it starts with your feet, in my opinion.
Yep.
Physically, but then you've got, as we said, nutrition, how much you sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you're sitting in front of a computer all day, because we shouldn't really be sitting down. We should be moving a lot more than we do. We could talk for hours on that.
Absolutely.
So.
I think I'm fascinated with the barefoot aspect affecting your health. What do you think? Comparing someone that walks and runs barefoot compared to someone that wears a extremely padded shoe. I've seen those shoes with the massive. It's almost like they have a. What do you call it?
The rocker.
Yeah, the rocker. Yeah.
So there was a shoe called the Masai MBT, Masai Barefoot Technology.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they might have been taken off the market or something, but they literally had a rocker like that. So they're designed to roll. Well, I've been to Africa actually, and I've seen the Maasai, and they don't wear those shoes. So, anyway, they're barefoot. So our feet are an incredible. They've got 28 bones, 33 joints, over 100 muscles acting on each foot, something like that. 200,000 nerve endings in the sole of each foot.
Yep.
And they're designed to absorb shock, and then designed to give you a spring forwards. And they're your foundation. So as soon as you wear, from childhood, as soon as children start walking, and I made this mistake first off with my son, only for a short period of time until I realised, saw the light. You shove them into this shoe that is really small, really tight fitting, and completely inflexible. And then they kind of stagger around for a bit until they get used to it. But it weakens the foot, and it doesn't allow them to move naturally. It messes up their posture. Yeah.
I mean, if foot's not getting the exercise.
No.
And I mean, I was just thinking today as I was driving here, I was thinking, I bet a lot of people feel unstable and their coordination balance is actually off because their foundation isn't right. You know?
Yeah.
And
to be honest, I don't think you need to do a degree in this.
It's
just common sense.
It is common sense.
You know, you watch any toddler running around, or any toddler just moving, and they'll walk heel to toe. When they start running, they'll land forefoot. You don't have to teach them how to do it. They know the closest thing we've got to a wild human being is a toddler, right? Some
before
more than
the
others.
top 2 inches get in the way.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll do everything naturally. If they want to do something on the ground, they'll squat like this.
Yeah. If you watch, I mean, a lot of people don't actually realise, but kids have perfect squatting technique.
Perfect. And that's one of the first things I do when I'm coaching someone to run is like, show me a squat. Can you squat barefoot? And most people get to about here, and that's as far as they can go. Well, that's showing your limited mobility in your ankles, so you're never going to be the best runner you can if you haven't got that flexion in your ankles. So because if you stop doing something, you lose it, don't you? You use it or lose it. So if everyone, and there are plenty of parts of the world where people squat all the time. In Asia, I've not been, but I know, seen pictures, people have told me.
Even seeing them on the street in Auckland.
Squat in the middle. Oh, really?
Yeah, I was having a smoke, just squatting down in the middle of the Queen Street or something. Yeah.
And that's what we should do, rather than sitting in a chair. So you sit in a chair and things get all out of whack, and parts get tight, and weak.
Yep.
And if you sit in a chair in an office all day, terrible posture, hunched. Now we've got computers as well, hunched over like this, or sitting on your phone. It's a complete nightmare. The humans we're on a downward spiral here. So, so
I think everything's is starting to come back natural, in all areas, but there's still, I think, a bit of a downward spiral to go before a lot more.
A few of us have realised, but it's hard to get it out there. It takes a long time to break a habit, and I just try and encourage people to start off with. Even if they're working in an office, they could still wear the shoes, the barefoot shoe, or take the shoes off. You don't even have to have a shoe. Just take your shoes off, and every few minutes, get up from your desk. Do it. Just squat once, walk off. Who cares what everyone thinks?
Exactly.
In fact, don't even have a desk. Have a standing desk.
Yeah.
But still don't want to stand still. You've still got to move. So ideally, you'd have a couple of standing desks, and you'd move between them.
Yeah.
And you'd still squat down now and then. And so there are ways of doing it. You can incorporate it in your life, but you've got to have an understanding boss, I suppose, and
Yep. So choose your job wisely.
And then and that's the other thing. We're not designed to be really
9 to 5. Is that what you're going to say?
We're not 9 to 5. We're not. That's another discussion altogether.
It is. But, I agree actually, because it just takes away your freedom completely.
Yeah.
I mean. I used to be, only 6 months ago, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in my chiropractic centres. And, I mean, we were talking about that earlier, but you become a slave to bills. You actually have to turn up and see X amount of clients just to pay the rent. And it's sad,
But that's because, I mean, society, whatever you want to, we grow up thinking that we're supposed to have a mortgage, we're supposed to have this fancy car, a telly, all this stuff, we just keep buying more and more stuff and upgrading it. Every 5 minutes there's a new phone that we're supposed to have. And we're buying all this stuff to impress the friends that we probably don't even have anyway. And we have to work all the time to do that. Whereas I think now there's a big move to, well, I think we should be going backwards, taking a huge step backwards, simplifying life, minimising our overheads. So
Absolutely.
It's not about being lazy. I mean, I don't stop apart from now. There's a hell of a lot of work to do here.
Yeah.
It's not about sitting around being lazy. It's about not doing a job simply to earn money to buy stuff that you don't need.
Yep.
So you minimise, declutter, physically, and you'll declutter your brain as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that means you can have more fun. I mean, life is, for whatever people say, life is supposed to be fun. You're not supposed to be working all the time and being miserable.
Yeah.
And having to take drugs to medicine to be happy. It doesn't. People should be able to go surfing.
Absolutely.
I remember one time in England we'd been surfing and I was walking back up the beach and it was really good waves. And this lady approached me and really quite angrily said to me, "Have none of you lot got jobs to go to?" I was like, well, yeah, but there's also surf. So when there's surf, we go surfing. I'm going to go to work now. I was a personal trainer. I can make my own hours.
Flexible, yeah.
So that was a bit rude, to be honest. But
well,
you've got to have time to do that.
Yeah.
So.
But I can see from her perspective. I used to think that way too. Right. I used to think, geez, it's a drive through. Randomly I'd take off a day and drive through a beach town or something, and all these people there, and I was like, it looks like these people actually aren't on holiday. Looks like their lifestyle, and I was thinking, how do they do it? So yeah, I mean now I've become a lot more flexible myself. Yeah, I choose my own hours, and I live in a van. So sometimes stay at the beach in the middle of the week. Yeah. And a couple of weeks ago, I stayed at Uratiti beach, and I was walking by myself in the pitch black night on the beach. It was freezing, but it was just so silent. And man, I was just thinking, geez, how lucky am I to randomly do this when no one else is on the beach? It's such a massive beach. Yeah, so.
But it's just a big mind shift for
most
people.
I just couldn't believe it. I was thinking, man, the old me would just always be at home watching TV and not even realising this was a possibility. For some people that might sound silly, but I know, from what I've come from, how crazy. Yeah.
But if you're living like that like the majority of the Western world do, in a house, insulated from the outside world, with all the media, with all the devices. Yep. You literally, talking about barefoot, you're probably wearing slippers in the house. You get out of bed into slippers, into shoes, into the car without even touching the ground. Drive to work, park underground. You don't even touch the earth. There isn't any earth anyway in a city.
No, concrete and
breathing fumes and. Watching. When you watch television, it's telling you how they think you should be living. So to look at maybe what, and I don't think I'm doing anything extreme. It could be a lot more extreme than this.
Yeah.
To look at maybe how we're living or someone like it, they just wouldn't comprehend it at all, and how they would get from that to this. Would be just ridiculous. Yeah. We sleep outside, how when I tell people I sleep outside, it's like, what do you mean you sleep outside?
Yeah, you showed me before, but it's like a roof with canvas on the side.
It's just a deck for the roof.
Yeah, but the canvas isn't sealed; it's open, and basically sleeping in a sleeping bag with a mosquito net around you.
It's like going camping, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like camping 24 all the time.
So if you go camp, people love. They go on holiday and they go camping. Yeah, because it's fun,
And it's getting pretty cold now. Like, how do you? Do you just have a really good sleeping bag?
Did you know that in the Arctic you can? People actually sleep in the Arctic sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. No, if you've got a decent sleeping bag, you're not going to get cold. The warmest place is in my sleeping bag.
True, yeah.
I never get cold.
I need a new sleeping bag.
when I get up in the morning, it's like, it's a bit chilly,
Yeah.
We've got an outdoor fire. So in the evening, so if I need to cook anything, or even just to stay warm, we like that. It's actually feels warmer there than it does in that little hut. So, but it is extreme. I mean, if you've got a family, bunch of kids, and they're all used to living that way, it would be quite difficult to just
transition,
stick them in the middle of a field and we've got a compost toilet, which to me is perfectly natural now. It wasn't particularly at the beginning. I had to look online and Google compost toilets, and there's all this kind of how to build a compost toilet. It's just really complicated. And what do you do with the stuff, But literally, when you break it down, all I ended up doing was literally having a bucket with a box over the top and a seat, and then you put that in the compost. I mean, it's as simple as that. You don't even have to build anything. It took me an hour to build it. That's all it is. And then you have a dedicated compost for it.
You don't get like a lot of smell?
There's no smell at all. Put grass on top. There's plenty of grass.
Yeah, okay.
And that goes in its own designated compost bin. After 6 months, or leave it a year if you want, it's perfect compost.
Yeah.
And it saves it going into the sea, and
Yeah, I've seen another one where they pour lime, like you go and then pour some lime in there. Right. I don't know if you've heard of that. But
there's all kinds
same
of
thing, no smell at all, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But it's simple, and it's now when I go and use a normal toilet, I've got to flush this with precious water. That doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, we do use a lot of water, don't we?
We run out. Well, we haven't run out yet, but we're collecting rainwater here, for using. And I wouldn't dream of throwing it down the toilet. Need to drink it, and make smoothies with it, water the plants with it.
Hey, can you tell us some examples of barefoot runners, like that you've seen just with certain problems, and then just amazing transition into now like a more strong or whatever, healthier or
pretty much. Yeah.
Or common things that you often see, or
well, I've coached people from kind of probably youngest about 8 years old, up to about 65, 70, over 70 actually. Yeah. The youngest one, so the 8-year-old, his mum. This was down at the academy in Nelson, and somehow his mum got hold of the academy. Because his doctor or whoever had recommended that he should have orthotics, because he was in pain when he ran. He was a rugby player. He was only young, obviously, but he was really into rugby. And she wasn't quite sure about the orthotics, so she approached the running. Well, let's find out if someone at the running academy knows about this. So anyway, got hold of me, and I watched this kid run, and he just had horrible technique. He had his big cushion shoes, and he was running with a long, slow stride. And if you have a long, slow stride, you've got no choice but to land on your heel.
Yeah, true.
Way out in front. So there's a lot of shock coming up through your leg then. And you're also braking at the same time. So it's both inefficient performance-wise and potentially very injurious, because you're all
I
that
never
shock.
actually thought of that. There would be.
Yeah, so I took, videoed him as I do. So I video everyone beforehand in their normal shoes. We don't speak really at the beginning. It's like, right, let me see what you're doing, video it, and then I've got the proof. We'll sit down and have a look and slow it right down, and identify exactly what's going wrong. So this kid's young, so he wasn't really going to take in the whole, all the in-depth session. So his mum was there, so I didn't really go into a great deal of detail. All I had to do with him was literally take his shoes off. Well, he took them off, but tell him to take his shoes off. I had a metronome, which is used for music, which you can set at a certain beats per minute. So cadence, which is the number of times your feet hit the ground per minute, is very important with running. So if you have a high cadence, that shortens your stride, reduces the impact, and makes the whole technique a lot easier to perform. It makes your posture more upright. So that, combined with getting the right leg action, which is a kind of a stepping over action, it can be very simple to explain this even to an 8-year-old. So which I did, and he ran great. I mean, because he had a bad habit already, it's going to take a little while, but he knew what he was supposed to do, and more importantly, his mum knew what he was supposed to do, so she could reinforce it. I saw them again 2 weeks later, I think it was, and she said, all the pain went away. He's running faster in rugby. He's not coming home in pain. He doesn't need orthotics. I didn't do anything other than get him to take these ridiculous shoes off. He got some. So football boots or rugby boots, they're flat. They're essentially barefoot shoes. There's no heel lift.
Yeah, true.
Some of them quite narrow. They should be wider, but nonetheless they're flat.
Yep.
At least they did get him some school shoes, some barefoot school shoes. But I think most of the time he just liked to be barefoot anyway. So didn't need orthotics, and I haven't heard from them since. But I assume everything's great.
Yeah, well, that's
the other end of the scale. Had a lady come to me who'd had 2 hip replacements, and she was a runner and a triathlete, and was worried that she was in her 60s and wanted to continue being a triathlete for a long time.
Yep.
And I don't know how she found out about me. This was in England, and she was again running heavily on her heels, and was getting hip pain, which was natural because all that force, all the shock going up straight through the leg.
Yep.
So the Achilles, the arch in the Achilles, should absorb over 50% of the ground reaction force when you're running.
Okay.
If you're moving properly.
Yep.
Because they're elastic, so they stretch to absorb the shock. And then, like an elastic, once they've stretched, they'll then give you a recoil of free energy to help you move forwards. But if you're landing, number one, if you're in a supportive shoe, the arch is supported, can't flatten and absorb shock.
Yep.
You've got a heel lift, so the Achilles can't stretch as much as it should, and you're landing on your heel. Well, none of this is going to work. So in effect, you're not absorbing the shock; it's just going straight up through your legs. So this lady had these hip problems, and then had hip replacements, possibly due to running incorrectly for so long. Anyway, I don't know, but she wanted the future to be more bright, so we just changed the way she ran. And again, I'm no genius here. It's just I just have to point the way.
The funny thing is,
I've learnt from other people who've learnt from other people. I'm just the messenger.
Isn't it funny though? You say it's so basic. But barely anyone knows that, you know.
And I'm a standard that I didn't know about it. I got to age of 40 before knowing anything about this. And it doesn't make any sense. But that's actually the whole barefoot thing opened my eyes to other things, like the way we should be living. And hang on, if the companies making these big cushion shoes are wrong, or at least maybe leading us down the wrong path, what about all the food we're eating, or what about all the things we're watching on telly, or let's start thinking outside the box on everything.
Absolutely.
So
that's the way I live my life.
Question everything
and test. Keep open-minded. If I find something that works 100%, I still leave an opportunity for other ideas to come in.
You might change your mind completely.
Exactly.
It's a journey, isn't it?
Look at me. I was 6 months ago. I had 2 chiropractic centres. Sold them up, and now I don't even do chiropractic. I do contact care now. That sounds crazy, but it was that epiphany, that this stuff is great. It works, and it makes more sense. So. It was a no-brainer for me. Yeah.
But then what you're doing now, I'm sure you won't, but wherever you are in the journey, you might decide after all, actually this,
there could be something else.
This isn't right anymore, I'm on to the next.
Exactly,
step. There's always going to be another stage, so it's not that you've done something wrong, it's just that was part of the journey.
I'm always open to
the next stage. So
let's talk about these shoes, Vivo Barefoot. So I've bought 3 pairs now. So I was so impressed by the first pair, which was these brown ones, for work, which are, by the way, the most comfortable shoe I have now. And Jonno was saying back when I bought them, he said, "Oh man, when you wear these shoes, when you get home and you feel like taking your shoes off." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, you don't actually feel like that with these shoes." And honestly, it's so true. I could wear these from 8 in the morning till 10 at night, and I still feel the same. I'm amazed. So,
have your feet spread at all as well?
I actually don't know, but
because I was a 43, and then after wearing for a while, I'm now 44. I think I've stopped there, but
okay.
Your feet spread. You know, they're supposed to. Once they're given the space, they'll spread. You should see my son's feet. They're ridiculous. They're about that wide.
But that's what Jan said as well, who works with me. She said that she was wearing thin shoes, and then when she went to these shoes, her feet got wider, then her back pain went away, and it's just.
Yep.
And then someone else said, this chiropractor also said the same thing. He said, again, life changing. His back pain, subsided. So, yeah.
So the shoe is essentially, as I might have said earlier,
Same.
These are the same, yeah. They're completely flat, so there's no arch support. So you don't want to support your arch.
Yeah.
If you support any muscle in your body, it's going to atrophy, it's going to weaken and waste away.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it needs to be working.
So your feet become unstable, right?
Yeah, if they're
and
weak.
then
the knock-on effect.
Yep, knock-on effect. It's an unstable body. Could you say that? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
and your posture will be affected.
Yep.
But if you've got, whether you're an athlete or not, or just you don't have to be a runner for any of these shoes. Just walking around.
Yeah.
It's going to help all kinds of problems. So no arch support, no heel lift, and very flexible.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I was drawn to these, because they can bend down to nothing, and I can put that on my travel.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought, okay, I can have a work pair, an all-rounder pair, and my tramping boots.
Yep.
And didn't bring my tramping boots today, but they're my favourite. They look so cool.
But the thing with our feet, especially if we've been wearing shoes most of our lives, is that they're a little bit tender.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So what we do need is, we might not need support, but we do need some protection.
Yep.
So the sole of the foot needs a bit of protection. So there's a whole range of different shoes, from lifestyle to running to off-road.
Yeah.
Kids shoes.
For people that are watching, this is it's quite a flat.
Yeah,
sole,
that's a smooth kind of lifestyle sole. So and whereas that's an off-road sole for hard ground.
Yep.
So they have different types of soles, but essentially they're all puncture resistant.
Yeah, you're saying.
So
did you say Kevlar or something?
Well, I don't know if it is Kevlar.
There's
but
Kevlar in there.
Type of material like Kevlar that prevents punctures.
Yep.
And the wide toe box as well. So your feet are supposed to be wide at the toes.
Yep.
And tapering down to the heel. Whereas if most people's feet will point in at the toes.
It's a big issue as well. Like a lot of people getting bunions. You reckon that's from just the shoes?
Yeah, bunions aren't hereditary. They're from no one's born with bunions. Kids are born with feet the right shape.
Yeah.
It's only when you shove them in a shoe that isn't made foot shape. It's made. Someone designs the shoe and then you've got to cram your foot into it.
Yeah.
And your foot becomes the shape of the shoe. That combined with the weakness in the arch, that's where bunions come from. But they can be reversed. So.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's a good place to start. There's lots of aspects, as I said, to the whole conditioning lifestyle. But shoes or not wearing shoes is a very good start.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone that wants to look into Vivo Barefoot shoes, how can they contact you?
They can. I have a website which is called runningtechnique.co.nz.
Great.
Which is fairly self-explanatory. And they should be able to get me through that.
Cool. Yeah, and so you do your own workshops and one-on-ones as well?
Yeah, I do mostly one-on-ones.
Yep.
So instead I've worked with a lot of high-level athletes, but you don't have to be it can be anyone,
Yeah. It sounds like everyone should do this, just as a foundation.
You see, the funny thing is, a lot of people, you ask them, do they run, or they hate running. People hate running. Why? Because it hurts. Well, it only hurts because they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because running is incredibly natural for human beings. So,
yeah, exactly.
So if you do it right, it actually doesn't hurt at all, and it's a real pleasure. And then, the problems we got with obesity and health issues in the world, if you don't have to go for running for hours, even if you just ran for a few minutes each day, that's really going to help. So learning how to run properly is the number one thing.
Yep.
Good technique. Then you can run. You don't even need the shoes. People don't have to buy the shoes. They can run barefoot on the beach. I wouldn't wear shoes on the beach. You're going to benefit from the grounding effect on the beach.
Exactly.
It's incredible. So, but if you do need shoes, then I would definitely wear a barefoot shoe. And I'm, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I haven't found another barefoot brand that is as good as these guys. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to say, these are the first I've ever looked into, but everything about them, yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
and it's you can tell that the materials are going to last a long time as well. So, I mean, your example was
no,
how long they last.
They definitely last, and you'll end up with quite a few pairs anyway. So they last even longer.
Yeah,
you don't wear them all at once.
Exactly.
Yeah. But and kids as well. Kids should be wearing them from. You should never put a child into a normal shoe.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay. To what age or any age?
They should never.
I thought.
They should never wear it.
What am I talking about?
Because children's
Barefoot
feet.
shoes.
Yeah, children's feet they're cartilage, and they're not even fully bone until well into the late teens. So it's cartilage. Cartilage is mouldable, and it's not going to form its proper shape if it's unless it's allowed the space to. So
yeah, great. Also, another thing I forgot to ask was where do you do your workshops, and do you travel around, or do you just stay put pretty much around Waipu?
Pretty much anywhere. I mean, so I'm up in Northland at the moment.
Yep.
So I go down to Nelson every kind of 6 weeks or so. 2 months maybe.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm based down there. I'm down there for a week at a time.
Because you train athletes down there, is that right?
Yeah. So the National Academy of Distance Running is based in Nelson.
Okay.
So I go down there and work with the guys down there, and there's often new athletes that are coming through. So. Just to make sure they're all, and also when they'll be up on the North Island doing events, national athletics champs, etc. So I meet them there as well.
Yeah.
But then I'll do, one-on-ones around here, or I normally travel to people.
Oh, cool.
I've done a little bit down at the Millennium Institute on the North Shore.
Wow. Yeah.
Ideally, it would be, if I'm going to travel a bit, then a group would be good, because it's not really cost effective. Not that I don't really actually make much money out of doing this anyway.
Yeah.
It's more about trying to help people,
because
I think they should know these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's obviously would be helpful if I could at least cover my costs.
Yeah,
and come out with something.
Absolutely,
that would be great.
Absolutely.
So a group of people would be ideal if I've got to go somewhere for a weekend or something.
Yep.
Or this is a great place to visit if people want to come up here.
And also, parents, if their kids are wanting, to make the rep team and rugby and things like that, they'd want a good running technique,
Yeah.
So it's even rugby teams. Have you taught a whole team before, or?
Not a whole team. There's a soccer academy down in Masterton.
Yep.
And I met the guy that runs that. He's an ex-pro Premiership player. Mm-hmm. I coached him in Nelson, and he sent me a few of his players.
Yep.
But not all of them. It was only the ones that he could see that maybe he thought needed it. But, I mean, pretty much everyone really should have some kind of session.
Well, it sounds like I think I should get a session.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Sometimes so.
But it's, every sport that involves moving or running, even like netball, for example, which involves a lot of jumping, which is even better. You've got to absorb the shock, and you want the spring that you're going to get through your foot. So, it's about building the strength in your feet. There is one thing that people need to be aware of, though, that if you've had your foot in a normal shoe for your whole life, it's going to be weaker than it should be. So if you just take your shoes off and go running barefoot, especially with poor technique or whatever your technique, you're liable for some kind of injury.
Absolutely.
So it's going to take a long transition.
So good to meet someone like you, where they can you can transition them gradually.
So that book, Born to Run, and barefoot running in itself is a huge movement. Is a movement, but it has caused a lot of problems. Because people are like, I don't need these shoes, throw them away, and they're used to running, 100 miles a week, and they carry on, they're going to get a stress fracture, and then this barefoot running's rubbish. No, you've got to do it properly.
Condition yourself.
You don't jump
gradually
on a motorbike not knowing what to do and go flying off down the freeway. You're gonna be in trouble. Great. So technique's key.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I think, is there anything else any information that you'd like to, if you're No.
Yeah, just surf a lot, run plenty, drink lots of smoothies. Live outside.
Yeah.
Don't stress so much, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Oh well, thanks for showing me around today,
No worries.
and inviting me into your lifestyle, and it's been pretty inspiring.
Awesome.
And I've always been interested in basic living. Well, actually, in the last couple of years, should I say? And just not having to rely on the society that we living in.
I think living in a van is definitely a really good way to go. But having a base is useful, so you can grow some food and
and a
somewhere
shower.
to come back to.
Well,
there's the sea.
There's the sea, but there's
showers down at Waipu Cove.
It's getting cold now.
yeah.
But cool.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.